Hello, everyone. So if I could have you gather some cider and some wonderful pumpkin bread and peanuts and various things, we'll get started. As you can see here at S.I.T, at the School for International Training, we are beginning to reconnect this year with some of our traditions. We began the year with a convocation, which we have done in the past and are reinitiating. And today I'm going to give a State of the School address to talk a little bit about what I have observed over my year and a half as provost. And at the end of the address, we'll have some time to chat and have some conversation and questions. So welcome everyone, and hopefully I won't be as long as Fidel Castro, and we'll have plenty of time for questions. So thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedules to come today. It's really wonderful to see such a wide and diverse group of the School for International Training community assembled together. Let me start by explaining why I've gathered you all today and why I believe this investment of time is important for us. When I arrived a year and a half ago to assume my role as provost, I sensed in this community real promise and commitment to the mission of the institution. S.I.T prepares students to be interculturally effective leaders, professionals, and citizens. In so doing, S.I.T fosters a worldwide network of individuals and organizations committed to responsible global citizenship. And you have all shown me your commitment by helping to prepare our high school and our college study abroad students and our master's candidates to make real and lasting change on the global stage. Over the past year and a half, I have also heard a real sense of urgency. S.I.T has experienced many transitions of leadership lately, and this can lead to a sense of insecurity about the direction of the organization, its vision, and even the basic policies we're going to follow as a community. So while change is an exciting and energizing word, it also can provoke anxiety, and I want to recognize that. When I arrived, S.I.T had recently completed a painful restructuring process, and there were many loose ends from this process to tie up. While Word Learning overall had posted several years of positive financial results, at S.I.T we were facing another enrollment dip. I rolled up my sleeves and got to work in partnership with the deans and directors of S.I.T and many of you on all the different units that collaborate at S.I.T to address our immediate concerns. And this is often my style. I consider myself a very involved provost, a very involved manager, and it's important for me to understand the institution not just strategically but operationally. And so I spend time in many of your units. I'm not a micromanager, but I feel too often senior leaders start to tinker with strategy before they really understand the community, its history, its strengths, and its challenges. My father used to always say, you need to know how stuff works before you try to fix it. I was never very good at that, but that's what I tried to do. So the past year and a half has been a productive and instructive deep dive for me into the School for International Training. And we have made many real, and I believe, lasting accomplishments together. However, the detailed work has taken me out of view very often and behind the scenes, often on an airplane to other places to see the work that we do not only on campus, but in Washington, D.C., and in 50 countries around the globe. And so I need to be more visible and more accessible to you, and it's time to start making that happen. So this address is really the beginning of a longer conversation that will continue to unfold over the course of this academic year, I hope, in various ways. So take today's talk as maybe a first draft of a roadmap for S.I.T 2.0 and a sketch of my vision for the institution and its important role within the World Learning family. Now, I say draft because I've been with you long enough to form some preliminary observations. However, we have a couple of very concrete opportunities I want to take advantage of before we really commit to exactly the roadmap we're going to be following for the next few years. I will continue to shape this vision, for example, with your input over the course of the year, and with input from the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, which will send its accreditation team to meet with us in 2 weeks. And that team has already met some of our study abroad sites and will be in DC next week. And as I explained in my letter last week, our senior academics team, which is your vice provost, the deans and directors at S.I.T., will also engage in a strategic planning process over the course of the year, and we're beginning to shape that and roll it out now. So these two processes, these two opportunities will help us complete a 3-year strategic plan to guide us on our journey. So for the remainder of our time together today, I want to really look at the state of the school, or our health, in 3 different areas. I want to look at our academic health, I want to look at our health financially, and then I want to talk about our health as a community. And I will argue that our health as a community really impacts our health financially and our health academically. So academic health. S.I.T. is a leader in international education with a mission focus and a model of instruction that are unique and powerful. Over the past year, we have enhanced the breadth and the depth of our academic mission by incorporating the experiment in international living into the office of the provost, as many of you know, and aligning its themes with those of our other academic programs around critical global issues. We now have our high school exchange program working in collaboration with the rest of the institution. This has been enormously productive as S.I.T. Study Abroad, Youth Programs Team, many in the Graduate Institute, those in Washington, D.C., certainly all of the various units that support our academic mission, finance, IT, advancement, all of you have collaborated to bring the experiment fully into S.I.T. And they've begun to work in close partnership, sharing resources, cutting costs, reshaping programs, and really preparing the experiment for a rebirth and renewal. It will take a couple of years, but which is already on a very good track. This is really the collaborative, innovative family of world learning at its absolute finest. So my academic vision is simple. Once the experiment in international living is fully integrated into the community, S.I.T. will be the only educational institution that is preparing the next generation of leaders from high school to graduate school who are empowered to address the global issues of greatest import and relevance on the world stage. Our leadership in areas such as experiential and engaged education, undergraduate research abroad, sustainable development, intercultural management, international education, teaching, particularly teaching English to speakers of other language, and post-conflict transformation distinguishes us and brings us tremendous global impact. Now, 50 years ago, Donald Watt trusted Gordon Boyce and Jack Wallace to take his vision of non-formal experiential education that was born outside the academy in Putney and on this very hill and bring it inside the walls of traditional academia. And so 50 years ago, the School for International Training was born as an accredited institution of higher education in Vermont and a member of the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. As we enter our 50th anniversary year, and yes, it is our 50th anniversary year, we have much to celebrate. We did not achieve our position in higher education by following the path, but by constantly innovating, anticipating, and leading. The current landscape in higher education is rapidly evolving, with both U.S. and foreign universities developing new offerings and increasingly competing for the same students. Now, 50 years ago, we were the disruptive force on the educational landscape. So let's not forget that as we feel rocked and buffeted by the winds of change today. That very change that is so hard for us sometimes is the exact thing that we were causing on the global landscape 50 years ago, Donald Watt and his team here on the Hill. As we face questions like these, what does experiential education mean in a world where most of our relationships are mediated by technology? Is study abroad going to become obsolete because of technology? Or are we going to change the conversation to one about how to harness technology as a tool of engagement rather than a force for isolation and disconnection from the world? And in order to stay relevant, we need to do a few things better if we're going to continue to lead and continue to innovate, if we are going to be the disruptive force rather than be disrupted by the forces of change in higher education. A few things academically. Number one, we need to accept that the very best ideas 50 years ago, as much as we love them, are not the very best ideas today. Today's students engage in different ways with the world. In many ways, the debate's artificial. Technology for them is experiential. Students experience their world through lens and screen. Their journals live on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr. FaceTime in real time aren't opposed. They're just two different ways of engaging with the world. Technology can be incredibly empowering or disempowering. The point really isn't whether it's empowering or disempowering. The point is to have this conversation and prepare our students to use technology in culturally appropriate ways around the globe. One of our major donors I met this week, actually, a wonderful woman in Cambridge, told me about an encounter with 4 Nigerian students from Harvard whom she is hosting. She said she was very disturbed by the fact that they come to the dinner table with their devices. And she said, would it be okay if we didn't use the devices? Could we just leave them out and have the dinner table for conversation? And they said, no, that's not okay with us. We need to have our devices. We're expected to be connected to our parents back in Nigeria and to our family, and we're not going to give them up. So this question of technology is not a U.S.-American phenomenon. It is a global phenomenon. So, folks, we will see more devices on the experiment programs. We will see more devices on S.I.T. study abroad and in your classrooms. And we will see more low residency and blended learning programs on campus. And we need to invest in these to stay competitive. Number 2, rapid change is the new normal. We have to accept that our academic programs in Brattleboro, in D.C., and around the globe must be nimble and capable of making course corrections quickly in order to stay relevant. And I think this, more than anything, is going to challenge us because our operations, as I've observed, were designed and set up for a time and a place when change happens more slowly. So this is going to be uncomfortable for us, but it is the new normal. Number 3, education is a data-driven endeavor. Now, at S.I.T., we like to think that part of our pedagogy is storytelling, and we look at experiential education and reflective practice as having a real element of storytelling. Data-driven endeavors is just a way of telling the story, so we don't need to be afraid of that. Today's students, donors, funders, and partners, as I talk to them around the country and around the globe, need to see more data. Our powerful story of transformational academic programs needs rigorous assessment to back it up. We are doing a better job of assessing our independent study projects at S.I.T. Study Abroad. We're doing a better job at integrating traditional academic learning into IHP, and to doing outside reviews of our capstone projects at S.I.T. Graduate Institute. We need to do more effective assessment and measurement like this. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean we just need to amass more data. We have a lot of data, but we need to be more mindful and intentional in describing what we, as the School for International Training, mean by student learning and achievement. Sometimes we answer that question, or we think we know, but when we dig into it, sometimes we're not always that clear. So what is student learning and achievement? What does it look like? How do we know it when we see it? More than anything, we need to see our data as an institutional asset that we care for and invest in, not just something that lives in bits and bytes on the computer. It is an asset of the institution, as real and tangible as this building or our investments. And when I go and I talk to institutional donors, the Boston Foundation, the New York Public Schools, various places I've been meeting with, they want to see. They will show me. As if everyone were from Missouri. Show me, the show me state. Priscilla can smile because she knows what I'm talking about. Fellow Midwesterner. Number 4, learning plans and capstones at S.I.T. Graduate Institute need to be sharpened, more fully integrated into our curriculum, and they need to go online. Our S.I.T. Study Abroad independent study projects increasingly need to be digitized more effectively. At the School for International Training, we really should approach technology like we approach foreign languages, that is, as a necessary and indispensable skill for a complex global world. Number 5, S.I.T. needs to design and deliver academic programs for and in partnership with international institutions. We have to find better ways to increase the participation in our programs by students from around the world. And that means designing new programs or reshaping programs for a global student body in concert with international partners. And number 6, S.I.T. programs create effective global citizens who make change happen. We know that. We are not value-free education. We believe in social justice, we believe in inclusion, we believe in empowerment. And S.I.T. education engages students in these conversations, and that's not going to change. At the same time, and increasingly, our students need hard skills to be competitive in the workplace. This means we need to incorporate more financial, strategic planning, economics, statistics, technology, monitoring and evaluation skills into our graduate programs. More research methods and ethics in S.I.T. study abroad, more global issues into the experiment. We need to find ways to integrate the tools of effective social change within the conversation about the purposes, goals, and visions for social change. And so that on our academic health. Now looking at our financial health. Last year you heard that we were in a very good financial position, and today, as I have alluded, we face enrollment pressures, and this year we will have a budget deficit. So how does that happen? How did the story change? Are we in a good place financially, or are we in a bad place financially? Which story is true? And I will argue that elements of both stories are indeed true. The School for International Training faces many of the same structural challenges that we see across the landscape of U.S. higher education. Increasingly, regulations and the rising cost of compliance drive our costs up. In order to stay competitive with larger, better-funded competitors, we have to make innovations in the areas I've just discussed, like educational technology, IT, faculty and staff training and development, research into the effectiveness of our programs, our campus facilities. All of this further fuels cost increases and overhead increases. S.I.T. also faces a pricing challenge. Many of our programs are too expensive. We have small, tightly focused experiential programs around the world. These are excellent academic experiences, and it takes more time, effort, and expense to maintain and develop a global portfolio of 70 mostly small or medium-sized study abroad programs in comparison to our competitors, or a half a dozen small graduate master's degree programs than, say, if we had a smaller portfolio of programs with more students in them. That's just basic math. Now, we know that quality also takes investment. So we have to have, at a certain point, an honest and frank conversation about scale. How big do we need to go to be viable? How big is too big to achieve our mission? We really have to have that conversation because the financial situation is tough right now. Now let me be clear. Closing programs in order to be more focused and cost-effective, or in order to create space for new programs in critical areas or global issues that we know we need to be involved in, is painful for members of our community. And this year I have closed programs in both the experiment and in S.I.T. study abroad. This has been unpleasant, it has been painful, because we care about job security, we care about the needs of our faculty, we care about our staff in D.C., in Brattleboro, across the world. And because the colleagues and friends who have gone all contributed to this institution and to its students for the years they were here. We celebrate them, we celebrate their contributions. However, allowing our portfolio of academic programs to grow beyond the ability of the market to sustain these programs, or in a way that drives up overhead and further fuels spiraling costs, means that we have to charge our students more and more in tuition, putting them into debt for longer term, and making it impossible for our enrollment management team to enroll a diverse group of students. Now that, my friends, is a social justice problem of another variety. Addressing the costs of education at S.I.T. is an ethical issue as well as a business model issue. So we need to be very strategic in controlling our costs and managing our price increases carefully. We are almost entirely dependent upon tuition revenue. So we absolutely must become more effective at individual donor, foundation, and corporate fundraising. Now, our president has made this a priority, and in collaboration with the advancement team, is fully invested in this endeavor. But each of us should be supportive partners in our own ways. We also must find a cost-effective way to build alumni engagement because they open doors for us, they send us new students, and they become the donors of tomorrow. It is unconscionable that we have no alumni office on campus, And it is a financial issue related to our long-term health, but it's also a cost, so we have to figure that out. It's not as simple as just opening an office, or we would have done that. Now, I want to be clear, while cost control and cost containment is an element of everything we do, we need to integrate this into our conversation. Always be mindful of cost. You don't cut your way to profitability, and that's Business School 101. Even a liberal arts guy like me knows that. It's not, it's not sustainable for us every year to set a budget and then have to lop off $2.5 million here or there. And what happens is then the uncontrollable costs like inflation go up, and what we've ended up cutting is quality. And that's a problem. So the global economy is fragile, and we're exposed to many global political and social instabilities. Enrollment in our programs are going to fluctuate. This is the new normal. With so many small programs, missing our targets by simply 5 or 6% can put us back into deficit. Very easy how we went from having several years of growth and strong finances to deficit. Very easy, because 5% up or down is not, when you're looking at small numbers, it's not a lot. Very hard to hit that. 35 students in study abroad one way or the other, 50 students in grad, that's not a huge number, but it has a big impact because of our size. Larger institutions with more financial resources face the same challenge. We're not alone on this road. Yale University, down the road, projects a $40 million budget deficit this year. Now, of course, they have an endowment of $20 billion as well. So they will also be cutting costs, and they'll be containing costs. The conversation is not that different when I talk to the provosts at Yale and Harvard. I mean, they feel the pinch too. Obviously, from our perspective, looking down the hill at them, it looks like grass is a lot greener. It's just a matter of scale. It really is. What we're facing is not unique. So we must address the challenges of our financial model so that we don't run regular budget deficits and that we try to level off some of these peaks and valleys. Some of the measures we've talked about, cost control for sure, new and revised financial aid and pricing models, that's getting more and more sophisticated into very, very complicated financial modeling. Enrollment growth wherever possible, but we're doing all the right things in that area. This year, with the CRM, with new catalogs, with cost containment, adding recruiters, deans getting out in the field more. We need the deans to be a part of the enrollment management team. I am out more. Don is out all the time. We're doing all the right things to grow enrollments, but we have a lot of external factors working against us. And finally, through careful planning, budgeting, and fundraising, and when we have the resources available, and there's clear mission fit, we can consider strategically opening new programs and lines of business. But we must be careful not to create new programs just because they're exciting, a really good idea, something we want to do because we like the idea, or we think it would be great, or interesting. But rather, we only should open something when it is strategically imperative to do so in order to fulfill our mission, and proven, or likely proven, with a really good analysis, to be financially viable. First has to come the strategic plan, then the program development. I think too often we have done this the other way around. Now, I want to be honest with you and clear with you. Our financial challenges are very real. And the lessons of the past 5 years indicate, however, that we can successfully produce balanced budgets. We've done that over the last 5 years. And we've gone back into having deficits this year. But we can do it. We've proven that we can do it. That financial health is always going to be fragile in this economy. Constantly, we have to monitor the current economic situation and adapt and adjust. So while the challenges are real, the solutions are also in reach. It's not that many students when you add it up. So having said that, let's talk a little bit about the health of our community. I want to spend some time talking about the health of our community, and I'll argue that the health of our community is inextricably linked to our academic and financial well-being. How so? At Convocation, I shared a parable, a teaching story that comes from the Jewish tradition, and I want to repeat that here today because it's illustrative. There was a community of monks that worked for social justice, and over time, the community became less and less vibrant. People lost energy, people stopped coming to their retreats, their educational programs and outreach languished, fundraising slowed to a trickle, a drop, and a nothing. The monks began to turn against one another, bickering ensued. One day, the abbot realized, something has to be done here. this is all kind of falling apart. And he knew that there was a Jewish rabbi down the valley in another community who was really very wise and had been successful building her community. This rabbi was now retired, so the abbot went to have tea with her and explained his situation. At the end of a wonderful conversation about life and death and philosophy and all these wonderful things, the abbot said, you know, we've had this great conversation, Rabbi, but you haven't really given me any advice. And the rabbi replied, my advice is this: the Messiah is among you. So what does that mean, the abbot asked. And the rabbi said, the Messiah is among them. So muttering, the abbot went back down to his community and said, well, it's great, sage says the Messiah is among you. I have no idea what that means. A great stir arose in the community, and the monks began to wonder, well, this can't possibly be true. Brother Richard is grumpy, Friar Tom overeats, Fred is lazy, there's no way. So the abbot, scratching his chin, began to wonder, well, maybe let's just suppose that this could possibly be true. And gradually the monk said, maybe I'll just be a little nicer in case it might be true. Tom went on the diet, Fred got up early, started a literacy program, some of the bickering stopped a little bit, maybe we better be a bit nicer. And just in case, the rabbi knew something we didn't. And slowly the valley was abuzz as the monks began to get energized and create new programs. Tourists returned at first, interested in their retreats. The local press was interested in new programs. Outreach led to interest, and slowly the community was back to health again. So to put this story into the inclusive language of our community, I would say to you, to S.I.T, the full potential of the human spirit is right here among you. Now imagine that, right here on this campus, on our experiment programs, on a bus between countries on an IHP program somewhere, a study abroad site, the full potential of the human spirit is among you. How do we behave if we believe in the full potential of the human spirit being among us? And by the way, isn't it? Hold that thought. So I shared some really difficult but honest information with you because I have faith in you. I've laid out some of the areas we need to work on in our academic programs, and I've been very honest about our finances. I've acknowledged how difficult and painful these challenges are. There are a couple ways we can respond to these challenges. One way would be to turn against one another and make this a zero-sum game, to fight to get everything we can in our budget this year because there might not be any money left, and if I don't get my share this year, I'll never get it, and if I don't do this, all these things, right? And in fact, that happens sometimes, and that's why presidents and provosts are not always honest with the community. Well, if I don't tell them things are tough, then nobody will know, and life will be good, and I actually think that's not true. Last week, someone said to me that in financially difficult times, an organization can become like the Hunger Games, like the movie, right, where everyone's vying to fight against one another. That's true in some organizations. That's not the institution that I came back to lead as provost. I came back to lead the School for International Training, the organization that, as in the first parable, truly believes that the potential of the human spirit is right here, in this room, in D.C., in Delhi, in Brazil, in Australia, around the world. Just think about it. Last year, in this cafeteria was Sefakor Komabu Komeye, a student at S.I.T. Graduate Institute, an amazing and talented woman from Ghana, tenacious, fearless, I would say. And she certainly taught me to be more mindful of different abilities on campus and the impact of our physical structures here. We have a nice new classroom in Roach in part because of that experience that I had with her, and we are making some changes to our facilities this year that will improve them for people with different abilities. Sefakor not only graduated, she went on to win an Advancing Leaders Fellowship here at World Learning, and she is now educating policymakers in Ghana on including people with disabilities in civil society through the creative use of media. And it's now starting to work. Ghana has said, we're concerned that you're not including women and men with disabilities in our society. And she went on to represent the country at the UN Commission on the Status of Women. And guess what? You all participated in Sefakor's education while she was right here on this hill. Oh, the talent, the grace, the tenacity, all of that is Sefakor's. No question. But you helped to contribute. And like Sefakor, there are countless other stories of the quiet, smart, unassuming student sitting out there on the hill, studying on a fall day, who later takes the world by storm. Think about other Advancing Leaders Fellows. Max Perel Slater, an alumni at S.I.T. Tanzania Wildlife Program, a study abroad program, who created the S.I.T. NGO to improve water quality and empower women and children of his study abroad community. Or Sia Shrestha, S.I.T. study abroad alumna of the Indonesia Arts and Social Change Program, who created and founded the first children's museum in her home community in Kathmandu. And the other Advancing Leaders Fellows and their colleagues and their friends and everyone that you know, so many stories. And you helped educate these students right here in this room. You, the S.I.T. community in Indonesia, and Nepal, Ghana, Tanzania, and all the other places listening in remotely or watching this on the video. You did it in countless ways. The smile that you gave them in the lunch line, the meal that you served here on campus, the beautiful landscaping that you helped to create by planting the trees, the extra hours spent prepping for class, or that terribly long and boring faculty meeting, not that mine are ever terribly long and boring, hosting our students as a host family, giving a tour, the late nights answering the emergency phone and attending to students in need in any of the 50 countries where we work, the willingness to participate one more year in our phone-a-thon, maybe make a donation yourself, by cutting costs, by turning in your budgets on time, by getting expenses down a bit, even when you really thought you could use every dime or real or RMB or dinar. It all adds up. It makes a difference. It makes a community. And this is the S.I.T. that I came back to lead. The S.I.T. that educated Sethakor and Max and Snia and the other 100,000 alumni of this institution. So, in conclusion, S.I.T. is 50 years strong. It is 50 years vibrant, it is 50 years proud, and 50 years rich in stories of the leaders and change makers shaping society today. Over 100,000 of them. And we do have a bright future ahead of us. However, we have to overcome certain challenges to get there, and that starts with the help and the vibrancy of the community that you help to create in small ways and in large ways right now, today. So, in 2 weeks, the NIAS accreditation team comes. Next week, if you're listening in from DC, and they want to hear these stories. This is a conversation with our colleagues at NIAS who face the same challenges that we face. They want to see the S.I.T. that educated these amazing students, you all. They'll talk to faculty, deans, directors, staff, students. They want to meet the S.I.T. that's bold enough to reflect on its challenges, honest enough to admit that we can do better, and brave enough to actually take the steps to do better. And that's the health of our community. It starts here, and I believe it is healthy and it is vibrant. And so with that, I want to thank you for your time, for your talent, and for your incredible spirit, and take some time to listen to you and answer a few questions or comments that you have. Thank you. I think there may be microphone, or yes, we have a mic there. Comments, questions? Can be brave. Nadia? Karen.
Hi, John. I just want to thank you actually for your words, and I feel like because I know that John has also spoken a lot about inclusion and this issue about technology, and I just hope that we have I know that we're going to have an opportunity to really talk about how what kinds of step-by-step things we need to do. And I'm just curious, when you've had your conversations with Don about like the inclusion question, where are our next steps around that, perhaps, or who might you gather together to have some conversations?
Yeah, I think that now thinking about next steps for some of these things, we have a group working on inclusion on campus, and I think Jane is working on a group, and through the strategic plan, we're going to start looking at what are the next steps. We have a section of the strategic plan on values, and so the deans and directors should start talking with you all in various groups to begin to see, well, okay, how do we live these things out? Because that's the right question. And you can't get there in one step, but what are the little things we can do this year, and then the next year, and the following year? And that's what I hope will happen with the strategic planning. We have over here.
I just wanted to thank you very much for touching briefly on the alumni point. It's definitely a conversation I'd love to see flesh out a little more over the next kind of quarters and years. But I wanted to see what you think were the next step of starting points sort of that.
You know, it always starts with a conversation, and I think right now, advancement, we certainly talked a lot, the colleagues in advancement. Donna and I have spoken, Lisa and I think sitting down intentionally together to see, okay, what are our resources, what are we able to do? One thing we have done is the board has asked how it can be helpful, and one of the appropriate roles of the board is to really help us with fundraising and outreach. And so we've said, well, you know, we have a board member who founded the Smith College Alumni Association with all volunteers. And I would hesitate to guess that Smith College does a fairly good job with its alumni outreach. And they maintain that. So we are going to have a board-level task force helping us to think about that. And we've asked them to step up to the plate and help us there, and I believe that will happen. And then we'll have the conversation here on campus as to how advancement and our programming units can really work together to figure out, you know, where that belongs. Right now, a lot of people do a little bit, but we haven't really come together to unify our efforts.
If you could elaborate a little more, where do you see the school, like in 10 years from now, doing the same thing in a different way, doing different things, or what's in your vision?
So where do we go 10 years from now? And you know, it's always dangerous to look out beyond one or two, but I do think, you know, the programs are increasingly online, and what it means to sort of have really long-term residential programs is a question. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't have a campus, but you know, we're seeing youth programs come here more and more, and that's really quite interesting to see some of the young people, and not always young people, who come and visiting programs out of Washington and increasingly are interested in using this campus as a place for dialogue. And boy, does that increase the diversity and the interest of the campus, right, and the community. So I think you'll probably start to see that traditional residency programs are slowly changing into more online, more short-term, more certificate, more, and I don't know how that will look. I don't know exactly the steps that will happen, but I can foresee that. UVM was talking to us the other day, a beautiful campus in Burlington, and they said, well, you know, when accreditation comes here, we used to spend so much time on facilities, and that's increasingly less and less relevant even for us, because so much of the conversation happens, you know, and of course we need the face-to-face, but you don't necessarily need as the length of time we traditionally have. So I would imagine it will look like that, and that we're all going to have to get more comfortable with technology than probably many of us are, you know.
Will we ever be rich?
Will we ever be rich? I wish I had a crystal ball and I could answer that.
Maybe in 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. If we can find that major donor, yes.
I have just one comment. Being an HR person, organizational health is something that I think community health is important. And I think it's timely considering one of Don's initiatives for the HR team was to roll out an engagement survey, which is going to measure organizational health. And I think when he first came to us with that, our comment was, you know, taking the survey or giving a survey is easy, but it's doing something about the information that we receive. That's the hard part. And he, as well as I believe the whole senior team, is committed to doing that. So I would just encourage people to take the survey and give honest, constructive feedback, because I think this is a good measure of organizational health and areas we are doing well, areas we can improve, and it's a good assessment of that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point Rachel made. For those of you who couldn't hear, she raised the point that we're going to be rolling out very soon, I believe. Yeah, an engagement survey, which will really ask you some questions to give us feedback about the health of the community and what we can do better. And I agree, we've got to turn these things into action and into small steps. At S.I.T. with our strategic plan that has to fit within the World Learning Vision, and we'll do that. So I think this is timely, and I would encourage people to be honest and give us your feedback. I know I can do better, and I'm sure that all of my colleagues on the senior team agree, and we want to do better for you and by you, because the community is really, I mean, that's who we are as an educational institution. This is our biggest asset. It's right here in this room, and in the other rooms where this conversation is taking place around the world. So be watching for that. Otras cosas. Quelque chose de plus. So if there aren't any other comments, I want to thank you for coming. And I want to encourage you all, if you are part of one of the many groups meeting with the S.I.T team, go back and take a look at our self-study, reflect on those pieces that relate to you. If you don't have a copy, your dean or director can get it for you. And consider this a continuation of this conversation. You may see them informally here at lunch. Feel free to talk to them. It's less of an inspection team. You need to think of this as our educational partners who are helping us to meet the standards of accreditation so that we can continue to fulfill our mission, which at the end of the day is the mission of the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, which is to provide these unique and rich and empowering educational programs that no one else does quite like we do here and beyond. And so I look forward to that conversation, to the engagement survey, and what I hope will be a year of really rich and productive conversations, sometimes challenging ones, but good ones that lead to some concrete actions for us to continue to grow as a community. So thank you again for coming, and I look forward to talking to you more over the year.
You should be